All right, so this one says what function does the graph represent? So this is a graphical representation. On the last problem, they gave us some information, but remember that the vertex form, right? This section is on forms of quadratic equations. Now, the vertex form is f of x is equal to a times the quantity x minus h squared plus k, where the vertex itself is h comma k. Now, when it comes to graphing this graph, what do I want you to write down? Do I want you to write down all these little dotted lines? No, just do your best to draw a straight line up and down, right? Do your best to draw a straight line up and down like this. Then try to draw and label that as y, because that's the y-axis. Then draw a vertical line kind of further down. Label that as the x-axis. Think about how it looks on the screen. Do your best to kind of make your graph kind of look like this. But here's the important part that needs to be labeled. Okay? I need you to write down 2 on the x-axis, and I need you to write down 1 on the y-axis, and then notice that the vertex is right here at the point 2, comma 1. That's the x, comma y value. In other words, from the origin, I went over 1, 2 in the positive x direction to get to 2. Then I went up 1 in the y direction, so that y value is 1. Okay? This is the vertex. Well, we say x, y when we look at the graph, but for the formula, this is really the h, and this is really the k. In other words, for my formula, my h is equal to 2, and my k is equal to 1. Now, the vertex, I'm going to add some additional information about the vertex. The vertex can be a minimum of or a valley. It could be a minimum or a maximum. This one is a minimum because it is at the bottom of the valley. Now, when I graded your guys' notes, I said, what is this? And a lot of people said bottom of the valley. Well, that's good, but it's a vertex that's also a minimum. So minimums and maximums are always going to occur at the vertices or vertexes. And they're either going to be the bottom of a valley, and if it is, it's a minimum, or at the tippy top of the hill. Right? So I'm just going to kind of reinforce that. So let's plug in what we know. So the vertex form is f of x is equal to a times the quantity x minus h. What do I write down next? Can somebody tell me? Yes? Are you holding it up? Okay. So student's holding up 2 fingers. And who thinks he's right? Do you think he's right? Good. So that's true. So I'm going to plug that in the formula. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add k. What do I put in there? Plus 1. Okay. Now, am I done? Am I done with this? No, because I just want f of x and x. Everything else has to be a number. So at this point, I think to myself, what's a? Does anybody know how I can find a? Well, I can find a by plugging in another point that's on the line. So to find A, I need to plug in. Now remember, whatever I write down, you got to write down. What I want you to do is I want you to see what's A, because that's the step in the process. I want you to know to find A, you got to plug in an X and a Y value from the graph. So I want you to write the words down because that's what I'm teaching you is this process of finding this equation. So now here's a trick. I'm looking at this graph because I got to find another point. I can't use the vertex. That won't help me. I need to find another point. And I got to find a point that looks like it crosses right here on the corner. This one looks pretty good. Well, what point is that? 7, 6, right? So that's an X, Y that's on the graph. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think of f of x as y. In other words, I'm going to say y equals a times the quantity x minus 2 squared plus 1. And then to find my a value, I'm going to take 6, which is the y value that appears on the graph somewhere. I'm going to set that equal to a times the rest of this stuff, but instead of plugging in x, what do I plug in? 7. So now I'm going to do some math and see what I come up with. We got to follow order of operations. So I'm going to say 6 should be equal to a times the quantity with 7 minus 2. 5 squared plus 1. Well, in the next line, I've got a, what's 5 squared? 25. So it's a times 25, but I like it to look like this. It looks better when I do this. Now from here, can I solve for a? Absolutely. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And I get 5 is equal to 25a. In the next line, I'm going to say 25 divided by 25. And remember, whatever I do on one side, I got to do on the other. Now, this is going to be a decimal. I could leave it like that, but I'm going to say 5 divided by 25. I should get 0.2. So at this time, go ahead and get your calculators out. And I just want you to get familiar with sitting 5 divided by 25. Okay. I want you to kind of memorize where all the buttons are. Remember, you're going to take the SAT at some point in time, and you got to be able to do a problem a minute. These calculators can help you with that, at least for half the test. All right, so this becomes 0.2. Whew, that's a lot of work. But I just solved for A. Do I have the equation yet? No. Way up here at the top, I now know that A is equal to 0.2. So then my final equation is f of x is equal to A, which is 0.2, times x minus h, which is 2 squared, plus k, which is 1. Okay? So that was a lot of work just to get that answer, but we got it, and that's the right answer. By the way, we got to get really good at this because Algebra 2, the problems take twice as long. Okay? Got to get your minds ready for that.